So my name is Mike Aldifer. I've been working in television professionally since 1985, doing about all of these jobs. So the point of all of this is for me to kind of bring what we use in the industry into here. So that although everybody's volunteer, we don't have any professionals, nobody's getting paid to do this stuff, we're still doing it the right way. Because we basically have a whole bunch of best practices that have just been sussed out really since, the 50s. The stuff I'm going to talk about tonight really hasn't changed in all that time. Everything still works pretty much the same. So the big question is then, why do we care that much about this? If you give me the next slide, Clyde.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it wholeheartedly as though you were doing it for the Lord, not merely for people. That instruction there, our service is a sacrifice, right? We don't want to be bringing spotted lambs, all right? We want to do the best possible job that we can do, okay? So you guys, I appreciate you taking the time to do this and go through this because it's going to help us deliver a better product. The biggest part of what I'm going to be talking about in these slides for this first part is just basically vocabulary, so that we're all using the same terms the whole time, that when a director uses a term, you're going to understand what that is. Multi-camera television production is a team sport, okay? Every position is equally important, but every position is different. So just because you're on camera doesn't mean it's a lesser job than the director or lesser than the audio person. It's just more specialized, okay? But everybody's position matters. So I'm going to talk about what those positions are just briefly before we get to a little bit of the camera operation. The first one is the director. That's the person you're going to hear on the headset. They're the person in the back talking through this. The director's job is to talk. That's really, in most professional television, all they do. They don't touch anything. They put a headset on and they stand there or they sit there and they talk. So what they're going to be doing is providing direction during the course of the program. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of that. The next is the technical director, that is the person who actually touches the switcher. And the switcher is the piece of equipment that picks which camera is live at any given time. So the director is going to be giving instruction, and while he's giving instruction to the camera, he's also normally giving instruction to the technical director. In pro TV, every job is super specialized and really small because it's very high stress and the stakes are really high. So every piece of equipment generally has a different person on it. We almost never multitask. Unfortunately, here we're working a little bit different. Yeah. It's not as bad. This is a big step up from where we were in the other sanctuary, because in the other sanctuary, the camera director was also running lights, was switching, and was also being a camera operator for the remote cameras. So it's starting. We're getting close to there. The other position is the graphics position. We used to call this Chiron, which is a brand name of a particular character generator. So sometimes if you're with another director and they call Chiron, that's what they mean. In our spot back here in the control room, we're going to have a graphics operator, which is running the Pro Presenter, okay? And the only reason I bring that up as a television position is because as a graphics operator, they need to be sensitive to what the director is calling for. You don't want to go to a slide with the scripture verse, then all of a sudden have them change it to something else before that person can come out. So there's got to be a little bit of communication there, and the graphics operator is really key. And then, of course, the camera operators. Those are the people that are sitting at these three positions here. We do have 4 cameras. One of them doesn't move. So we start over here, camera 1, camera 2's in the middle, camera 3 on this side, okay? And we'll talk about some specifics of that. Now, like I was saying, the director just basically talks directions the whole time. So let's talk about some of these directions that you're going to be getting. You will never hear us say move. That's too general. It doesn't mean anything. All of our directions are very specific and they mean something in particular. So it's important you understand what these terms are. The only person who might say move is the Steadicam operator, because they're basically able to move around. They're
They
not
better.
wired to anything. Yeah,
I got a friend that does
They got a
that.
gimbal. Yeah, that's really horrible for your back. All of them I know have slip discs.
He's young and got a lot of muscles. so
Yeah,
it'll
he'll end
come.
up with slip discs.
Boy, he's doing that Yellowstone in 1883, and I'm like, you move that much? He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
gets paid well.
I'm going to play a little game. Some of you have been through this slideshow before, so don't jump in, but it's a good time for you to review, see how much you remembered from last time. This is a little game called Name That Camera Move. I'm going to put up a camera move and see if you know what it is. If you do, just raise your hand. We'll see how much you know. These are the 6 main camera moves right here. Okay? So we're going to go, let's take a look at those just for a second. We'll go to number 1 here. And this first move is front, back. Front and back. The camera moves in, the camera moves out. Anybody know what that's called? It's a good guess. Go ahead. That's the dolly. Hello. Hello, dolly. That comes from the original cameras where had a person as a operator, and it was literally like a furniture dolly. Now, a studio camera normally looks like that. It's a really heavy piece of equipment, and so that push in, push out is not something we have to do here because these are fixed camera positions. But most of the time, in like any news environment or anything like that, dolly's very common. And usually they want you to move in or move out, and they're pretty heavy. All right, how about this motion? The camera lift, camera drop. Camera lift, camera drop. Any ideas?
Not getting
Go ahead. All right, this is called pedestal. So it's pedestal up, or pedestal down, or ped up, ped down. Again, not one you really have to worry about too much here. That pedestal name comes from the fact that that's what the stand it's on is actually called. It's a camera pedestal. So there's that ring around the side, and that's actually what you use to push it around the studio, and you can raise or lower by turning it like a clock. Again, at this point, these cameras are fixed. We're not really gonna have to sweat with that. All right, side to side. This way, that way. Any ideas? Everybody remember? This is truck. Yeah, it's like dolly, but it's truck. So we differentiate the kind of camera movement by the specific call. Hey, Gabriel. Hi. All right, next one. This is one you will use in here. That is taking the camera this way, taking the camera that way. Everybody know what that's called?
Pan.
Pan. Very good, Andy. Yep, pan. All right. This is the other one you're going to use quite a bit. That's taking the camera up, taking the camera down from the fixed position.
Tilt.
Tilt. Very good.
Do I get any money for this? Because I'm doing all right.
All right, next one. All right, this one, a little bit different. The camera's here, turns this way, turns that way. This is mostly a direction that's given to somebody who's a handheld camera operator, which we don't have right now, but that could be something that could be added in the future. Anybody know what that's called?
Come on, John.
And tilt.
It's called roll,
close.
just like an airplane. Rolls to the left, rolls to the right. Our only roll is basically, there's a little gimbal that the camera head is on, but most of it, you guys are not ever gonna have to mess with that. It's only if your horizon's messed up, if you have it slightly candid, not on purpose, because that can be an effect which you want.
Like camera 1, that it was, the
Right.
horizon was off.
Horizon's a little off, so you would ask them, camera 1, I need you to roll right a little bit, or I need you to roll left. And we'll talk about the specific controls on the stance here before we leave. Okay, the next big thing you need to know as camera operators are the labels we give to framing. Go ahead, have the next one. And all of the framing commands come from the very earliest days of television, which are because of the way the cameras were built. They basically had this what we call a turret lens system. There was no zooms. It was 3 or 4 lenses on a rotator, and there's a plunger in the back you used to grab and turn and slide another different lens in front, okay? So all of our shots are called based on what those lenses were, more than anything else. And it's very similar to the way your iPhone is now. If you've got one of the new ones with the wide shot, medium, close-up, it's exactly the same principle. They're just doing electronic switching. So the first one is the extreme wide shot. That means take your camera and zoom out as far as it will go. That's what an extreme wide shot is. Take it all the way out, you're gonna zoom all the way back. So that's the first one. If it's like, camera, I need an extreme wide shot. When we say wide shot in here, that's generally gonna mean whoever's in the frame is head to toe.
Okay.
okay? So I need a wide shot of Clyde, it's head to toe. I need a wide shot of Neil, it's head to toe, okay?
So on this, and we have this double framing on our cameras. What's picked up? Everything to that outer?
Yep, I'm actually gonna talk
Okay,
about that in one
thank you.
second. Yep, I'm gonna come, that's a
Sorry.
very good, it's an
I
excellent
can-
question, just hold it, yep. Let's go to the next one. This is a medium shot.
Okay.
We asked for a medium shot, that's belt to head, okay? That's pretty much gonna be, with these cameras, the closest shot you're gonna get, okay? The only difference is when we have a seated musician, or if we had somebody on stage with a wheelchair, it's gonna be a little bit tighter. It's gonna come up off the belt a little bit, okay? But if we ask for a medium shot of Clyde, I need a medium shot of Neil, that's what that means, belt to head, okay? Next one. We're talking a little bit about camera composition. And one of the terms that we often use is nose room. Now, when you're composing a photo and somebody's turned this way, you don't put them in the center of the frame. Okay? Because basically they have all this dead space behind their head. Yes, they may look like they're in the middle of the shot to you, but that's not the proper place for them. If you notice in this shot, Neil is slightly off to where his back is closer to one edge than the other. This space in front of them is what we call nose room. So if we say, hey, I need a little more nose room on Clyde, I need a little more nose room on Neil, that's what we mean. We need you to pan away from them a little bit and let the weight of that composition come in, okay?
On
So,
this picture here, the podium is center.
yes, and that would be fine.
Okay.
So normally,
That's not what we're looking at in the
yeah,
shot.
we're looking at the person, yeah. So everything is gonna really be based on the person, all right? The other one we talk about is headroom, okay? That's the distance between the top of the person's head and the edge of the frame, okay? If I need more headroom, you need to tilt down and let the, yeah. Or if I need less headroom, so a lot of time what happens is because the way our cameras are positioned, and especially during worship, people are standing up and sometimes they're putting their hands in the air, this, that, and the other. You have a tendency to try to avoid that. Don't avoid it. Just include it in the shot, okay? The most important thing in every shot is the person's head you are photographing at that moment, okay? That is what carries all of the direction.
And included in the weight of that would be the fact that we've got the lower thirds.
Yes, that's exactly right. We have graphics that come in below. So Andy was talking about those lines that you see up there. Those lines are called action safe and title safe. Action safe is the outer line. Title safe is the inner line, okay? Your cameras will all display that on your viewfinder, okay? Where this comes from, oh, and also there's action safe and title safe for center cut. That's the old 4:3 television standard. Those of you who remember turning a knob on a television, the 4:3, and it comes from this. If you notice on these tube televisions, there's this bezel, the same as your watch, that holds the glass in, right? Same as on the flat screen TV. Well, that bezel is different on every manufacturer's television, okay? So title safe is designed to make you put the graphics in a smaller area so it's not cut off by the bezel. Same thing for action safe. On one TV, you might have this much room above somebody's head, but on another TV, it might be this much. And it's just because of the way it's manufactured and that bezel. So action safe is designed to get us past that and make sure that no matter what, it goes home. And title safe, same for graphics, okay? Now, with YouTube and some others, we're pretty much seeing all the way to the edge, but a lot of people are watching like we do. We watch YouTube on our TV in our bedroom, okay? So what you get there is different than what you get on your computer screen. Does that make sense?
But for us, when we're working the camera, action safe is what we're worried about.
Action safe is what you're worried about. You can use this title safe line, though, as a guide,
Okay.
okay? For example, in a close-up. A close-up is generally chest to top of head, okay? But in all of these cases, you can use pretty much title safe as the top of a guide, a pretty good guide for, you don't want to go over that with your top of the head.
Okay.
Okay? So if you can keep the top of the head around title safe, it can go a little past. You're going to end up having a pretty good shot, just from the get-go. Okay? And then extreme close-up is normally as close to the face as you can get. You're not going to be able to get that from these cameras. You don't have to worry about it. Okay? If we eventually add a handheld, that person would be able to get that.
And if it's Neil, you'll never keep him in.
No,
the
you would
frame.
never keep him in.
Not
Yeah.
chance, no.
Whenever I've directed church broadcasts before, the only time we've done like extreme close-ups are usually for kids in the congregation. They're doing something, either praying or whatever, and you want to get that. So you might ask for, give me an extreme close-up of that little girl or something like that. That would be where it would happen. All right, so 5 enemies of great camera work. These are the things that will cause you to mess up more than anything else. Number 1, boredom. Okay, we have 3 camera positions. You are not always going to have the shot that we need, okay? There's a reason we have 3, because they see different things. So any given Sunday, you might be on a spot that doesn't move around a lot. That's okay. It's not because you're doing a bad job. It's just because you don't have the shot. When the piano's over here, that camera over there gets it. This camera really can't, because it's shooting the back of their head, right? So you have to let the boredom part go, even though it can be tedious. You know, that's the one that gets me, because we'll call for something and they're like, oh, what? And then, then they have to come back. Number 2, competitiveness. So if you're one of these people that always has to be first, I always have to have the best, I always have to win, yeah, you tend to want to get shots that we didn't ask for, okay? That's, again, not your jobs, right? The director's going to ask for something. Your job is to get that and keep it, right? So he asked for a medium shot. You're going to get a medium shot. And if Neil walks over here, you have to follow, okay? It's not, I'm going to get this camera position, I'm just going to leave it. Your job is to get that medium shot of the person and hold that medium shot or that wide shot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have a few people that do walk around quite a bit. Number 3, panic. So you got caught off balance and something happens you weren't expecting, and all of a sudden you just, whip. Do not do that. Your job is to be slow and smooth. We'll talk about that in a second. And that is this. This is a Navy SEALs thing. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay? When you take your time and are smooth, you will get there quicker. You'll have a better product than if you try to just jump and, I got to zoom real fast, or everything you do needs to be really slow. Okay? Even if you're not there, unless the director tells you, I need you to hurry up and get this, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay? All right. Next one is lack of preparation. So you showed up at 5 minutes before the service was here. You walked up, you sat in your chair, you threw the thing, their headset on. You haven't even looked at the order of service. Okay? Every cam position, or when you walk in the back, there's going to be a stack of order of services. It's a blow by blow of everything that's going to happen and who's going to do it. Okay? So tell us who's going to lead the song, when the prayer's coming, all of these things. If you can anticipate this stuff, it's going to be just a whole lot easier. And the 5th one is distraction. This is the worst thing, okay? You're not moving your camera around a lot. I got to check my messages. I got to do that. Look, put it on Do Not Disturb when you sit down, and then, for an hour, it's going to be fine. Check it between services, and, everything's going to be great, okay? All right. We're going to talk a little about intercom discipline. So everybody is on an intercom. That's a headset, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. Has a microphone, okay? And here's the thing about the intercom. Before the service, between the services, you're welcome to hit that push to talk button, ask questions, do whatever. When we start recording, out here, it's radio silence. Radio silence. The reason is, if you think back to what I said about the director, their job is talking the whole time. When they get in a conversation with you about something during the service, they're not directing anymore, right? They're dealing with whatever issue you've brought to them. So, and the other part of it is, everybody else on the intercom hears this conversation. So not only are you distracting the director, you're distracting the other camera people who are supposed to be doing something. Okay, so if you get a professional gig as a camera operator and you talk while the record light is on, you are in real trouble. You're not going to get called back. Okay, so there's some easy ways to communicate without doing much while you're on camera. And the easiest one is to answer yes or no with your camera. Camera 2, can you zoom in anymore? All you have to do is tilt it up and down, just like you're shaking your head. Yes, I can. Or no, I can't. Right? Left or right? no, up and down. So it's a nod or a shake. And you can just do it with your camera. As long as you're not live, your tally light's not on, that's the easiest way to communicate with the director without actually talking. Because generally speaking, they're not going to ask you a really involved question, okay? All right, so we'll talk about camera setup just for a minute, and we're going to actually walk back and talk at the camera so you can see it. But a couple things you need to be aware of is these are fluid heads. There's hydraulic fluid inside these heads that sit there, and it helps make the camera motion smooth when you turn, okay? But that same hydraulic fluid, as it ages, and in particular when it's colder or when the air conditioner's running, it gets thicker than when it's warm. So it's more resistant than it should be. So one of your jobs as you get to camera position is to warm it up. Just take it and we call this a ballyhoo. It's from the old Spotlight command, where you just basically do figure eights, okay? Just do a few figure eights up and down. It'll warm up in just a few seconds, and then you'll actually be able to feel the difference, okay? Can we go back one sec? Now, when you get there, there is a tilt lock, and there is a tilt friction, same as pan lock and pan friction. These are different things, okay? Don't try to use the lock to be your friction. It will just give you a hard time while you're operating the camera. The lock is basically so that you can lock the camera and it doesn't tilt up or down anymore. That's what you do when you leave the camera position. While you're there, you want all the locks off. If it doesn't move as much as you want a less friction. If you want it to stay more friction, okay? I just run into this all the time where camera operators thinks that they're giving themselves a little more stability and they're cranking the lock down. That actually is not what you want. You want to crank the friction down. And I'll show you where those are on the camera. The other one is the zoom focus. We'll talk about that too. Okay, so here's the thing about this and focus. Focus is dependent on a number of factors. One of the biggest ones is the size of the iris or the amount of light coming into the lens. So what that means is you might have focus at this lighting setup, but the song changes and the lighting setup changes, all of a sudden you don't have focus. It's not because you did anything wrong, it's because the physics have changed, okay? So you went from a depth of field, which is the area that's in focus, that might have been 10 feet down to 2 feet, okay? So you need to be aware of that, and that's part of that preparation. We're here for 2 services, so you can see and anticipate when that's coming. But when there are big light changes, just expect to watch that focus, because it's going to change, and it's just the way God made light. All right, so calling the show is what the director does, and basically what you're going to hear each time is a ready command and then the take command, okay? We've got the tally lights working again, praise God. Yeah.
Oh, really?
All the headsets are working again, praise God. We just got one thing we got to figure out in the switcher. The director's going to, in every case, tell you, this is the shot I want, and they're going to say ready, and that ready is for whatever camera that'll be. So ready 2, take 2. Ready 4, take 4, or ready 3, dissolve 3. It's always a ready command followed by whatever kind of transition it's going to be, and then the camera that you're going to, okay? Don't take it personally if you are called camera 2 or called camera 3 and not by your first name. The director knows your first name, but we might have more than one Andy here, right? And so, unlike on a PGA tour, there's 60 cameras. How many mics do you think there are running a camera? Yeah, it's impossible. So you have to go by number, and that's how we call it. And so look at your camera position. Each camera, I'll show you on the display, tells you what your camera number is. So one of your goals when you sit down is to figure out what number you are, get that in your head. Okay, I'm 2, I'm 2, I'm 3, I'm 3, whatever. It's going to be camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Camera 4 is not manned currently, okay? So that's how the show is called. Let me see, I can't remember who I put it, okay. So when we're calling the show, we're trying to do something in particular, which is we're trying to tell a story, okay? Be sensitive to that as an operator, because what that means is our story generally works like this. I had a film professor always used to say, film directing is really easy. It's wide shot, close up, close up. Wide shot, close up, close up. Every scene, wide shot, close up, close up. That's basically how we tell a story in television. Wide shot. So it might be camera 4, but it might be your camera position. And that wide shot might mean you're zoomed all the way out, okay? That's to give context to what's going on, right? We want to show everybody where they are, what's going on in the room, all right? And then we start to narrow that focus. So we'll start with the wide shot, typically at the beginning of a song, beginning of service, and then as the song progresses, or say, Clyde starts leading a song, we're going to a medium shot of Clyde, because that's the focus right now, okay? We've got graphics on him and that sort of thing. But at some point during the service, and especially toward the end of that particular song, we might want to be backing out so we can see what the congregation is doing, okay? So just kind of be sensitive to that. We're telling the story together. Kind of keep that in mind. As you guys watch television after you leave here, you're going to notice this stuff. It happens all the time. You're just not aware of it, okay? All right. So the last part of that is we want to, I don't know if you guys noticed, have you been on the YouTube channel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so our services generally get 300 to 500 views, typically for any given service, okay? That's a whole nother service, okay? So for that person watching on YouTube or watching at home, we're basically trying to convey that experience of being here, okay? So that's also part of the storytelling, and the directors are going to be shooting for that. You can help them out a lot by being sensitive to that. We're going to have some services which, like we always, like when we get to Advent, we tend to have a lot of these blackouts and that sort of thing, which are a little tricky, but that's again part of that experience of being here, okay? All right, so what I want to do real quickly is take you guys back here to camera 3, show you a couple of things on the camera, the controls. You may already be aware of them. It won't take but a minute, and then we're going to be done. Cameras has a headset. This is your intercom, okay? Your intercom mic does not normally work unless you use this PTT, which stands for push to talk button right here, okay? So when you talk, you can say something, but nothing's coming through until you hit push to talk, okay? It's the first thing you need to know. The second thing is this guy right here, okay? These are noise canceling headphones, all right? Our worship is pretty high volume here.
Did come right, it is.
Very high time.
That piano player.
You're gonna have
We're cranking it up.
you're gonna have a hard time hearing, even with these over-ear headphones, unless you turn on the noise canceling feature, okay? All you do is press and hold this button. You see it starts orange, and then it'll change color. This one may not have a battery. It usually goes green. So this battery needs to be changed. If you see that situation, come see us back in Master Control. We'll give you a couple new batteries. All you do is you slide this guy off here on the bottom.
It's really hard, but it works.
Yeah.
What?
And then,
Sounds like
no,
a
I
personal
thought there were a
problem.
tray of them on there.
When I went yesterday, there was only 2 in the back.
I'll order some more off
Some
Amazon.
There's AAA's, but I didn't see AA's.
Okay.
Clyde, can I put it in order?
So we'll give you a couple more, just switch them out, not a big deal. But in order for this to work, you've got to have those batteries in there, okay? And yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
So the one thing that you might not realize is when you have that noise canceling on, you talk louder than you think you would.
Oh, yeah.
So be careful of how loud you're speaking because they can hear you talking when
Right.
it gets quiet.
But again, when we're in the service,
Yeah.
you're not talking anyway.
Right, and as you pointed out earlier, you don't want to be doing the push to talk because you are now moving your camera.
Right. Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time. The goal on these deals is, like a Pro one is normally like on a belt pack. Even then you have to take your hands off the camera and reach down here to touch it to do the push to talk, okay? So, all the talking before the service, chat away as much as you want. Between services, great. But when that countdown starts and we're in those last couple of minutes, you'll get a 1 minute direction from the director. At that point, we're done. All right, a couple other things to pay attention to are this. So I talked about this briefly. This guy right here in the front, this little knob right here, okay? This is your pan lock. So as I tighten that down, I can't move this, all right? So when you get to your camera position, it should be locked. And when you leave for the day, you should lock it, okay? But unlock this. It's not as big a deal actually on these newer cameras because they're digital. Our old tube cameras used to burn in. If there was a light source it would actually fry the tube, and it would leave a permanent bright spot. We don't have to do that as much, you're right, but still just general practice. Preserve our optical cables, which are quite fragile. Lock it when you leave, okay? So when you get there, just loosen this guy right here, and then you'll notice it turns very freely. Over here on the side, right there, that's your pan lock, okay? And that's the up and down, okay? Now, I talked about locks, but I also talked about drag. This guy on the other side is your drag, okay? If it's moving too easily up and down, or when you let go, it starts to move, increase the drag, okay? Counterclockwise is clockwise increases, counterclockwise decreases. There's markings here on the side. Same thing for pan. If you're panning and it swims and it just goes crazy, you can increase the amount of friction here with this knob right here, okay? So this is your pan friction, this is your pan lock. This is your tilt friction, this is your tilt lock. So one of your jobs when you get to your camera position, as I talked about the ballyhoo, it's just a little figure 8 motion you do to warm up the tripod. Once it's like that, you're pretty much set. If you notice it's really not the frictions you want, set it now. Don't wait till during the service, okay? You should be able to take the camera and have it, even with all these cables and stuff hanging off of it, which are a little abnormal, but you should be able to let go of it and it should stay still.
That's Mike's nice way of saying Clyde set this up.
La 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 la.
And you didn't design these cameras, that's just the way they are. Because even if we had the SDIs, it'd be the same problem.
Yeah.
So when you let go, it shouldn't move. If it does, start working your frictions, okay? Because I've got them generally balanced within a zone, but you may find you get to a point and then it starts to want to go off on its own. That's okay. As long as you're in that sort of area for the stage and it's not drifting up or it's not drifting down, you're in a pretty good spot, okay? Yeah. And the other thing is this, you know, that friction gives you a nice smooth motion, but it also makes it harder to get started and harder to finish it. So if you've got, you know, a person up there leading worship who walks around, we don't know who that is, Neil, who goes from side to side, he'll talk to this side and he goes to this side. You are moving the whole time, okay? You need to be able to pan just by a finger touch. It shouldn't be something where you're gripping it. Just push with your thumb, push with your index finger. It's really easy. This job is not hard. One of the senior cameramen at Channel 13 that I knew used to be their janitor. He showed up during a thunderstorm, was cleaning the studio, and one of the camera operators couldn't get there. They said, "Charlie, can you get on camera too?" He dropped what he's doing, sat down. He's now camera operator. His salary went up like crazy because it's a union station. So this is not a difficult job, but you have to take the time to get your camera set up before you get there. Okay, so the last controls you need to pay attention to, there's a few more up here, but we're not going to deal with those, are the zoom and focus controls. Okay, so the biggest thing that confuses everybody is this guy here on the side of the zoom and focus control, which is a little toggle switch. When you slide it in the up position and it says you're controlling focus, when it's down, you're controlling zoom, okay? Normally, most pro cameras are like our camera 4, where focus is on one side and zoom is on the other,
That would
so
make
you
too
can
much
do
sense.
two-handed operation. We don't have that with these cameras. It's actually not an option. So these are older cameras. If you want to fix it, write Clyde a big check. I'm sure we'll have new cameras.
By older, like less than 2 years old.
Yeah, and so that's just typical of this business. The technology is changing so fast, it's just impossible to keep up. There is an iris up and down here, which you really don't need to mess with. And I also recommend you do not try using the autofocus. Don't get dependent on that. There's a button there for it, and there's also one up here that says focus. If you press it, it will, but it takes forever to get focus, okay? Now, these cameras all have edge detection for the focus. So what happens is when things are in focus, you'll see green lines on the part that's in focus. So it may be a lot of stuff with green lines when we have a lot of light in here, we have a deep depth of field. When we have just the spotlight on something, it may be really narrow. But what's the thing you need to pay attention to and shoot for on your focus? Anybody know?
Eyes.
That's right, your eyes, okay? Eyes are what we want in focus. If somebody's wearing glasses, it makes it really easy because you can see the edge detection. But normally, work that focus to where you're seeing that green line on their eyes.
What I'm hearing is Clyde doesn't move around and he wears glasses. So I make your lives a lot easier.
You're the model person we want. Could you teach Neil that?
You know, I'll take your gift cards in my mailbox.
There you go.
There you go.
Something.